next material to be reviewed is Identical by Ellen Hopkins. And I doubt that this is a coincidence, happens to be the same name as the author. So do we have Ellen Hopkins on?
All right, well, I mean, it's obvious that showing up here is not going to be really helpful, but I'm going to go ahead and read you a couple of letters from readers on this book, because this book has, and I wrote this book because 4 of my friends were molested by their fathers, and they asked me separately to address the issue because they knew that not enough kids were encouraged to come forward. They knew that a lot of them are going through similar experiences, and they're afraid to speak up because historically women and children especially have been told to shut up about sexual abuse in their lives. So I'm going to read you a couple of reader letters. As the other lady was saying, yes, it's going to be helpful to a lot of readers. I have, over the years, received literally thousands of messages from readers, and these are 2 of them. Hello, Ellen Hopkins. I just wanted to let you know that of all your books have touched me, especially Identical, I felt like you were writing about my life down to the very, very last detail. Thank you so much for that book. It is my favorite. It made me cry, which that is the first book that has ever done that. Mostly, I want to thank you for not closing the door because people assume nothing happens behind closed doors. I was also till I was 16 by my father, and I have DID like she did. It was amazing how many details I could just say, hey, that's me. But unlike her, I have not been able to come out about my father to my family and friends. I'm working at counseling, though, and hope someday I will be able to tell them. Identical was the most intense work of literature I have ever read. I never felt so close to anything in my entire life. The only thing that made life bearable this month was having the opportunity to read your books, relate to them, and realize that I am not alone, and I never have been. First of all, thanks a ton. You're such an inspiration to so many people. I was nervous to read about all of these intense topics, and at points I found myself in tears because everything is so real. I'm almost 16, but since I was 9, I've had 2 different cases opened. It started with my uncle, moved to his friends. It was tough to live with for a while. It reminded me how scary it was to deal with it as I read the sections in Identical that talk about Kaylee's fear when she counts her father's footsteps in the hall, scared of what's coming. I don't know if I've ever cried that hard in my life, but it was okay because although it's fictional, these things really happen and I'm not going through it by myself. Suicide, addiction, and abuse are very real, but hope and faith and love are also very real, and they can often outweigh the struggles. Maybe I just want to tell you that you've given me hope and security. Thank you for listening and for turning frightening topics into conversation, because truly they're important. God bless. So, I mean, you know, if you look at statistics, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys will be the victims of assault. We must encourage them to speak up. They deserve to know they'll be okay, and someone sees and cares, that someone believes them. And for those who will never become victims, understanding what someone else has experienced is vital. Not every kid's life is ideal. Who will speak for them? Somebody has to speak for them, including in school libraries.
Okay, thank you very much. Tricks by Ellen Hopkins.
All right. Tricks follows 5 teens who find themselves turning tricks in Las Vegas to survive. I became interested in child trafficking when the FBI conducted a sting in Reno, where I lived for many years. They rescued 120 children, many of whom had been moved from point to point around the country. The average age of those kids was 12. I wanted to know how, when, where, and why. I researched heavily, including spending time in Las Vegas Vice. All 5 characters were inspired by real kids' stories. My goal was to show other kids how they might be recruited, how easily it can happen. My goal was to keep more kids off the streets and out of dangerous situations, to arm kids with knowledge. Yes, there is sex in the book. It's about prostitution, but as with all my books, it was written with my audience in mind. Also, as with all my books, the author's note gives not only statistics, but resources to help trafficking victims off the streets and into safe recovery. If kids as young as 9 or 10 can be trafficked for sex, older teenagers are certainly capable of reading about it. Sexual activity is a normal part of adolescent development. Pretending it doesn't happen won't make it stop. But some people believe eliminating books with sexual references will make it stop, short-sighted at best. Both of the books we talked about today put human faces on teen experiences we hope will never touch our kids. It's the humanity that's important, but you won't find that in pull quotes. You have to read the books in their entirety, walk in those characters' shoes to understand the depth of those experiences. And just for me, the right to read must not be infringed. I'm not the first to say this, but it must be repeated. Every person is free to choose whatever books they do or do not want to read. Every parent has always been free to make that choice for his or her own children, but no one is free to decide what my children can read. School libraries should represent every reader. Fear-driven politics is at the heart of the current book banning fad. It's not about protecting our children. It's about keeping them ignorant. We cannot progress as a country or as a species if we're not allowed to gather information, educate ourselves, and develop critical thinking skills. We cannot create a better future if we're not allowed to learn from the past. We cannot become better human beings if we're not taught empathy.
The complainant in this case is Elizabeth Soleil.
I'm not sure if Ms. Hopkins is still with us, but I would like to say to her that I have read many of her books and I have thoroughly enjoyed them, but I stand by my stance that I don't feel that they are appropriate for minor children.